Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing with college football week 2 stuff. We got Oregon on the road in Texas Tech. Line opens up Texas Tech catching 3.5 points at home here, but it reopens up at 5.5, 6 after they took that embarrassing loss to Wyoming. We'll talk about that in a second. Total opens up at 68.5. Let's go.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
So the action's all over the Ducks early in this one. It was one of the most public bets on the board early. Line goes all the way up to Texas Tech plus 6.5. But now the sharp action actually seems to be coming in on Texas Tech late in the week. So as I'm sure you've heard, you got Texas Tech coming off a bad loss to Wyoming to start the season. I know you saw the final score, 35-33, I believe in double overtime, 2 overtimes I think it was. But the way it went down was absolutely wild. Texas Tech was up 17-0 in the first quarter. 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Texas Tech was up 17-0. Fast forward to the final minute of regulation, 41 seconds in the game. Wyoming's winning 20-17. So Texas Tech scored 0 points from 4 minutes left in the first quarter till 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. People were going nuts about it on social media, and it was a big upset, don't get me wrong, but definitely a bit of an overreaction. Wyoming isn't an FCS program. They're in the Mountain West. They went 7-5 and played in a bowl game last year. They've actually played in a bowl game 5 of the last 7 seasons. And Jonah Field is a tough place to go play. Not saying Texas Tech should be okay with the loss. Just saying people on social media were acting like they lost to Alabama A&M or something. Wyoming's a solid Mountain West program. I know if you look at the box score of that game, it may look like Wyoming was slamming the ball between the tackles. They rushed for 171 yards on 3.9 yards per carry, but that's not really how it went down. Most of those yards came on the outside. The leading rusher in the game was actually Andrew Peasley, the quarterback, and a lot of his rushing yards came from double read RPO type plays, which is good and bad news for Texas Tech in my opinion. I mean, it's good to know that Texas Tech defensive front wasn't getting bullied by Wyoming. That's a plus, because Oregon's notorious for having one of the best offensive lines in the FBS year in and year out. And if Wyoming handled them, then Oregon's about to come in and hang 70 points on them. But the scary part was what Andrew Peasley was able to do, because I mean, Bo Nix is a better athlete, better thrower, so if Andrew Peasley can do that, what's Bo Nix about to do? Oregon went absolutely nuts on the ground last week, 348 yards rushing on over 10 yards per carry, 7 rushing touchdowns, but it was against Portland State, FCS program. I don't want to say who cares, but honestly, who cares? The Ducks did have a top 25 rushing attack last year, 13th in rushing yards per game, 5th in yards per carry. Beta Rank had them rated 23rd in effective rush. Will we see that again this year? That's tough to say, because Oregon's offense definitely saw some turnover from last season. At first glance, it may look like they got all their pieces back. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver 1, tight end, all those guys are back, but they lose 4 out of 5 starters on their offensive line. And that was the strength of their offense last year. Entering the 2022 season, Oregon had the number 3 ranked offensive line in the FBS behind Georgia and Michigan. 4 of the 5 starters are gone. Now, as far as the Texas Tech defense goes, it was one of the most underrated units in college football last year. Everyone assumes the Texas Tech defense was bad because they just look at the final scores and the box scores. But you got to keep in mind, they averaged over 89 offensive plays per game last year. They ran the fastest paced football game in the FBS by far. The next closest was Buffalo in second, at just 80 plays per game. Most teams averaged in the high 60s as far as plays per game. So we're talking about 20 extra offensive plays, 40 extra plays in the game total. Obviously, there's going to be more yards and more points if they're running 40 extra plays in the game. Texas Tech's defense was actually rated 31st in effective rush, so they had a solid run defense last year. But here's the problem. They lost a lot of production, specifically in the defensive front. Just 2 returning starters from their defensive front 7 last year. And Texas Tech isn't the type of program that just replenishes a defensive front year after year. In fact, in 2021, the run defense was awful. That makes this matchup extremely difficult to predict. You got Oregon with 4 new starting offensive linemen against Texas Tech with 5 new members of its defensive front. I'd say just based on what we know about these two programs, Oregon probably wins that battle just because they tend to recruit better, but that's just speculation. On the other side of the ball, Texas Tech offensively might have a bit of a mismatch here. Last season, the Red Raiders like to throw the ball. 288 passing yards per game. That was 16th in the FBS, 38th in average passer rating, 22nd in effective pass. This was a top 25 passing attack last year. And I know they lost, but Tyler Shuck looked pretty good in the opener. 338 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. On the road in Miami may seem like whatever, but they had the 67th rated pass defense last year. Want to know where Oregon ranked? 71st. So Wyoming's pass defense is actually tougher than Oregon's last year. And straight up, the Ducks defense was awful against the pass last year. They were ranked 71st for a reason. They were 110th in the FBS, allowing over 270 passing yards per game, 71st in average passer rating allowed, and 71st in effective pass. I already mentioned it. So you got a Texas Tech offense that could sling the shit out of the ball last year at home against an Oregon defense that couldn't stop the pass. Sounds like a mismatch to me. And to add a little icing on top of this cake, Tyler Shuck, former Oregon Duck. He spent the first 2 years of his collegiate career with Oregon before transferring, so there's even a little bit of revenge sprinkled on top of this mismatch. But we have to mention that the Ducks did make moves to fix their pass defense problem. In fact, we're pretty much looking at an entirely new secondary here. 5 of Oregon's 11 defensive starters are new transfers through the portal this year. The positions: edge rusher, 2 corners, and 2 safeties. So we are officially looking at an entirely new unit for Oregon as far as pass defense goes. So they do expect to improve in that department, but Portland State showed us nothing. This will be their first true test, and it's a big one. On the road against the top 25 passing attack from last year, with a quarterback returning who has a revenge factor in there, they're going to have their hands full. Real quick, let's read off some trends. Oregon, 3-2 against the spread as road favorites. 18-13 against the spread as road favorites in the last 10 years. That tells us nothing. 2-2 against the spread versus non-conference last year tells us nothing. 15-20-2 against the spread versus non-conference the last 10 years. Wow, nothing to go by there. Texas Tech, check this out. 1-7-2 against the spread in their last 10 versus Pac-12 teams. They have not played well against this conference. They were 2-0 against the spread as home dogs last year, though. This should be a really fun football game to watch. I'm expecting a lot of points, and so are the odds makers, with this total sitting at 68.5. As far as what I'm personally betting, I'm rolling with the Red Raiders in this one. I'm still deciding if I'm going to take Texas Tech plus 6.5 or Texas Tech team total over 30.5. I might split my money in half and take both, but I'm definitely on Texas Tech here. So give me Texas Tech plus the points or Texas Tech team total over. If you want my top bets, parlays of the day, if you want to join the Discord, or if you want to join the NFL Against the Spread giveaway, head over to KyleKirms.com. All the information can be found right on the homepage there. College football week 2, a lot of action on the board. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you on Twitter.